Well, without any haste, I will introduce the stars of the evening, Tony Hale and Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi. Before we begin, I just need to say one thing, which is that in perfect Veep tradition, they fucked up and screened the wrong episode for everybody tonight.
Hey.
And so right now, I've got a smile on my face, but I'm repressing rage like Selina. Like you have no idea. In fact, my heart is racing because I'm going to kill somebody. So I think that we're hoping to get a thumbs up, and at some point during this Q&A, and then if you guys have the time and you wouldn't mind to watch the one we really wanted you to see. Well, we're hoping to get the whole thing. Okay. Yeah, we're going to be here till about 1 or 2 in the morning, if that's cool. And
they have nowhere better to be. They're fine.
Yeah, I don't have anywhere better to be. Screw it. So, so anyway, that's the status of the current screw up in our lives.
Well, as screw ups go, I think it was still very funny, regardless.
Thanks.
So, no harm. So before well, first of all, I'd love to know how many people have been here for a Veep event and how many people are new to the show. Maybe double question there. Okay. So everyone's very familiar with the show. Okay, good. So I'll skip the, you're new. Okay, well, we got to start from scratch then. I got
We're all a mess.
Because I feel like I've asked you guys every possible question there is about Veep. But first, before we get to Veep, I would love to know, for each of you, what was the very first moment you remember making someone laugh? And realizing how good that felt and thinking, I want to keep doing that. And I don't know how to do it maybe as a career, but how do I continue to do that because I enjoy the experience of that.
Oh, okay. Just like it globally, like our lives.
Yeah, no, way back when.
Yeah. I apologize. I was at Comic-Con this weekend. I lost my voice. So sorry. Oh, that was so nice. That's a nice one. Do you have a moment, or do you?
No, you go ahead. If you have one, you can think about it.
I'm trying to think. I will say, my family moved around. I was an Army brat, and we would move around a lot. And I remember when we came to Tallahassee, Florida, I was in the 7th grade, and my dad retired. And my brother was kind of big into sports and all that kind of stuff, and I was just this kind of spastic kid that they didn't really know what to do with. And there was a local theater called Young Actors Theater in Tallahassee, Florida, that they signed me up for. And I am just to this day so grateful for that choice they made and for that theater, because it really, I mean, not only it was fun to kind of make people laugh, but it was an arena where I could kind of be free to kind of develop my personality, find out what I love to do. And that space is a creative space. Even if you don't go full-time in acting, it's so important for some type of personalities like myself. So I think that was definitely during that time I was like, wow, I enjoy this vibe and the audience and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So that was me.
Julia?
When I was 3, I stuck 2 raisins up my nose. And my mom howled. She thought it was funny. At least that's my 3-year-old memory. And then she said, okay, take them out. And I went like this. And off we went to the emergency room. So it was a comedy turned drama. But I remember getting a good laugh initially.
That's a classic. That's a classic.
Uh-huh.
And at what point did you try to set in motion a career path for yourself where you could continue to do this kind of work? I know it's never precise science, as everyone in this room would agree, but were you just trying to act, or did you really want to focus on comedy? Because acting is great too.
Well, speaking for myself, I just wanted to act and sort of fell into the comedy stuff and still just want to act, to tell you the truth. So I don't consider myself, a comic. Well, because I'm not. But I just always did it. I mean, from the get-go, and I went to school to study theater in a real way. So it was an extracurricular activity, which it was, you know, in high school and even before. And it was at Northwestern University that things became even more impactful and powerful in my life through the students I met primarily. And I did a lot of, and that's when I started doing a lot of improv at Northwestern. And then things started, you know, falling into place. I did theater in Chicago, and also, I, of course, did theater on campus. But and then one thing led to another. But I seemed to fall into this comedy thing every time. But believe it or not, I did do drama when I was in college and stuff like that. And you know, Enough Said was sort of a drama. But anyway, we're here for Veep, so. Thanks. I didn't say it for that reason. That sounds very, okay. Anyway, whatever. Go. You answer.
Well, my thing is I studied, I didn't think after high school, I didn't think I could make a living off of it. So I studied journalism in college. And then I remember I left college and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. So then I just went home, didn't know what I wanted to do, and then I started studying in Virginia. I went to an acting program, and I was like, you know, I really enjoyed acting in high school. And so then I just fell in love with it again, moved to New York, didn't know anybody. My first show was Shakespeare in the Parking Lot, where we did...
You're kidding.
No, yeah. We did Taming of the Shrew in a parking lot in the East Village.
Wow, that's amazing.
And that was fun. And there was like garbage trucks and crack needles or whatever drug needles.
At least it was a comedy. At least it was
yes,
a comedy.
It was comedy.
Right.
And then I just kind of, man, I was there for, I remember the first 7 months of being, I moved 6 times in the first 7 months, just couch to couch.
Right.
And then just kind of do it, you know, off Broadway. And then started
in the Hudson River. That's how far off Broadway it was.
And then did commercials and, you know, it was kind of, I remember I did so much, I cater-waitered a lot, and then temp worked a lot, and then started doing commercials, and then it kind of balanced out to where I could do more commercials, and then in 2003, that Arrested Development brought me out to LA, and then I've been here ever since.
Was that your first series that you ever got, was Arrested?
Yeah.
God, that's amazing.
Wow.
Oh, it was crazy, crazy. It was nuts. But I remember I was so overwhelmed. I mean, I didn't know how. I'd never been to LA. They flew me out for the callback, and I was like, what? That's crazy. So it was. I didn't remember. I went out, and then like a couple days later, they hired me, and I was like, I don't have any more underwear, so I had to go to Old Navy and stock up on underwear. Guys, it's a great story.
And we're so glad you did.
Thank you.
Well, you sort of already answered my next question. Maybe Julia has a specific point. Who
yes,
or
I went
what
to Old Navy for underwear, too.
She loves it.
She does that before every audition. It's like a little ceremonial thing. Julia, who or what gave you what you would consider your big break? Whether it was letting you read again for something, or a connection you made that served you well later on, or a casting director who took a chance on you, or what do you obviously you've done so many things that we know, but maybe there's something that we don't know about that was very special along the way.
Well, I've had a lot of lucky breaks, to be honest. I've fallen into some very fortunate moments. But I would say that my husband, actually, in fact, because my husband, long before he was my husband, actually long before he was even my boyfriend, had started a theater company in Chicago called the Practical Theater Company, and I got a part in a show, a comedy show, and which was a sort of a medium success, and in so doing, we met a guy named Sheldon Patinkin, who's a very important person in Chicago and Chicago theater, and a great mentor to all of us. And then we did another show that was a huge hit in Chicago. And it was from that show, between my junior and senior year at Northwestern, I was doing it that summer, and the producers from Saturday Night Live, unbeknownst to us, were in the audience. And it was after a particular night's performance, they came backstage and they offered us all gigs on SNL. And so it was like, huh? And it was just, and so I would say that fundamentally, that's really my husband and his partner at Practical Theater, Paul Barras. So I'm very grateful to him. Only for that, really. But
Thank you, Brad
yeah,
Hall. Let's
yeah,
give Brad
exactly. Hey, for Brad.
And we certainly know what happened after SNL and all the wonderfulness that you gave us in the 90s. We don't have time to go through all of that, but we'll just say thank you for Seinfeld.
Thank you.
I still watch it every day, and it's never not funny still after all. It's incredible. And then I'm really freaked out when I look at the DVR. I'm like, that was 20 years ago. Some of those episodes, it's just, it's amazing. So shocking, but
How
still
about 25
perfect.
years ago?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yes.
How mind-blowing is that?
Incredible
Ugh.
and totally timeless.
Jesus, God. Oh, well.
It's like an old friend. I love it.
Oh, well, we're going to be dead one day, all of us, I guess.
So we'll have to jump forward a little bit just for the sake of time, but tell me how each of you was initially, I guess, attracted to Veep. Julie, I know you had a sort of very early connection, and then Tony, what was your journey to the show?
Well, initially, what happened with me is that my agent came to me and said they're developing a show at HBO about an unhappy vice president, and I just went, yeah.
Bingo.
And so then I was immediately like I was crazy, and met with Armando Iannucci, who's the creator and voice of our show, from the UK, and we met at a hotel, and we were supposed to have tea for like 45 minutes and just sort of chat about the role and stuff, and then we ended up talking for 3 hours, and we got along really well, and then he wrote the script, and it was great, and off we were to the races, and here we are now, 3 years later, or whatever it is, right? God,
Amazing.
so it was a good leap of faith to take, that's for sure.
He's one of the funniest people I've ever met. It's
Yeah, he's off
really,
the charts.
Everything that comes out of his mouth is funny. Even
Yeah.
if it's just a banal conversation about nothing, he's very gifted.
He's actually incredibly intelligent.
He is.
On
And
top
nice,
of being
too.
incredibly funny and very kind.
Yeah.
He's perfect.
He is. He's pretty perfect. He's my favorite Armando in all of the world. And how about you? How did the script come to you?
I remember there was another show that I was kind of, I had shot a pilot for the year before, and they didn't know if they wanted to continue it. Oh my God. And I remember and granted, here's the deal. I'm so thankful to have a job. So I mean, I was so happy just to have shot this other pilot, and I mean, just so thankful to be working. But anyways, the script for Veep came along, and you know how, like, even though you're so thankful working, you see a script sometimes and you're like, ooh, oh, that's good, that's good. And also I knew Julia was interested, and I had seen his show, The Thick of It, and his style and kind of that, and the thing about DC that I loved about it is, these people are, I've said this many times before, and I apologize if you've heard it before, but they're put in such high-pressured positions with that kind of pressure and kind of the pedestal they're put on, they have to freak out. They have to go behind the scenes and lose their minds. So the potential for comedy in a show like that, and the vice president being the second in command without much power, that's like, oh. Yeah. So it was really a fun premise, but I was locked to this other show, and I have to admit, there's a couple months there that were really stressful because the other show just didn't know if they wanted to do it, so it was really keeping me from being able to make the choice, but thankfully it worked out.
Did that show move forward?
No, it didn't.
Okay,
It didn't.
well,
It didn't.
good.
So, I mean, it was a little stressful, but in the end...
It was stressful for me, too, because I wanted you desperately in this. We haven't actually ever really talked about this,
guys,
have we?
excuse us.
It was. And we did all sorts of backstage negotiating, maneuvering to try to make that work, because I was flipped if you weren't going to play that part. Flipped out.
Well, that's so nice. It's but I mean, as actors, you all know, like when you go into an audition room and you just feel the chemistry and you feel the vibe, and you just immediately fall in love with wanting to do it. With Julie and Arm, it's just like, it was kind of just like this candy store was put in front of you, and you're just like, whoa, that looks delicious. But thankfully it worked out.
Well, and it's crazy. I mean, the cast is everyone, there's such great synergy. Everyone, you guys just love each other, and it's so functional.
Yeah, and that's a big
really
thing.
amazing.
We really do, because a lot of us, live in LA, so when we shoot, we're away from our families. And when you're away from home, you don't want to be with people that are awful. You don't want to be with people with egos, and it's so nice to be with kind, gracious people like that, and just people who can have a good time and just want to make the best show possible. That's really important.
No doubt about it. And also people that you feel have your back. I mean, in other words, so much of the show is, it's entirely scripted, but there's a great deal of improvisation that's also folded into the process. And then the writers come back, and then the writers write more on top of it. And it's a really organic process. And you can't do that with people you don't trust and people you don't like. And because at the end of the day, really, you know better than anybody that as actors, you're just playing. And if you're playing really well and having joy in the process, it will come across in performance and in the end product. It might get, okay, so I'm being given a thumbs
You have the thumbs
My
up.
glasses, so I can't see.
Yeah. So, should we take a
Sure.
break?
I mean, maybe we'll go about 10 more minutes and then show. It's 3:08, correct?
No, it's 3:09.
Oh, excuse me, 3:09. Whoa, that was a close one.
What is going on tonight?
I had nothing to do with any of this.
I
just
know,
for-
I'm kidding. I'm kidding, joking.
Yeah, we'll just cut this a little bit shorter and then we'll stream that for everybody. I'm curious, what would each of you say is the thing that's most surprised you about yourself from the show? Something about the way it's tested you, maybe fears that you had that either were realized or weren't realized, and maybe that stuff you learned about yourself as an actor that you didn't know or hadn't really had a chance to show before.
Excuse me while we just start crying up here.
This is the James Lipton moment, so take a moment.
Does it have to be from the show, or can it be as a whole actor business stuff?
Sure, whatever part of that resonates with you.
I mean, you know this, what I'm about to say, because we've talked before, but I think like anything, a big lesson that I've learned and I'm continuing to learn is anytime I'm on a job or anytime I'm doing, because many times in my career, I've always been like, that big thing's coming, that's coming, that job, whatever it is. And I'm not present much. And I made a lot of mistakes on Arrested Development that I don't feel like I was really present. So this job was a real challenge for me to just, as my friend says, you have to wake yourself up 100 times a day to where you are. And it's like, I really wanted to be present. I really wanted to enjoy it. And granted, I'm not good at it. I'm a work in progress, but this has been such a great challenge for me just to be like, you know what, I'm not going to be constantly stressed about the next job. I'm trying not to be, or trying not, but it's like, I'm going to just to kind of be present, just be here and all that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And
Very
Not
good.
easy, not easy.
That's mindfulness you're talking about.
Yes.
Yes. I just took a mindfulness meditation class. So I'm just learning that to try to get through season 4. And because actually, in fact, it's scary. For me, I've been very lucky in my career to be at home and really pretty much for decades and working. And I have 2 children and a husband, of course. And so being away is something that was very frightening to me. I'm get homesick when I'm away pretty profoundly, and it's hard to feel as if your feet are underneath you if you feel homesick and a little bit lonely. So what you speak about being, I think, the mindfulness in going into next season and actually looking back on the process, I think I was doing that without realizing it, which was sort of just the way to get my mind off of being there in Baltimore and away from home, was to focus just on the work, And so So my answer is sort of similar to yours, and it's a good life lesson anyway, isn't it? I mean, it's a very tricky thing to do. It's
hard.
Yeah, it's a bitch.
Because I think our business is so, we also get asked, like, what are you doing? What are you doing next? What are you doing next?
Yeah, what's
coming
next?
up? What's
That's
coming up for
right.
you? And it's like, whoa, you always got to kind of be on your toes about
You gotta
stuff.
up
and it's
yourself.
Like, yeah, it's like, wait, where am I now? You know,
Right.
it's not really encouraged to be there that much. You
Right.
know?
Very much. I'll do one more question, and then we'll go to
please.
screening, and then we'll actually.
This is fun.
This is a marathon, and then we'll have time for a couple audience questions after. And then my last question is, what do you, the business side of Hollywood can be very confusing, stressful, painful at times. What do you wish you'd known about navigating that side of it before you started? Whether it was, getting an agent is still so difficult, probably even more difficult than it used to be. Managers, all of that, all the people you actually need to continue to work, but it can be very difficult. What do you wish you had known about that process?
Well, there are two things I wish I'd known. Well, actually, one thing, the primary thing is trust your instincts, because it's what you've got. And even if you're wrong, because you can always rectify somehow and make a change. But your instincts are what you have, and own them. And I think that if you don't follow through on an intuition for the most part, you'll regret it. And that doesn't mean you won't make mistakes, but I think that's very important. And nowadays, frankly, unlike when I was just first starting out, you can create your own work. And so whenever I talk to people who are trying to get going in the business, I say, make it for yourself and get it out there, because it's such a vast universe and it's so hard to get represented and it's so hard to get a job. All of that is real and challenging, but there is this opportunity of, I don't know what you call it, social media, the internets, I don't know what it is, but to get, but the interwebs, but it is a great opportunity to create stuff for yourself, or if you're not a writer, to go to writer friends and conjure up material, because you see it time and time again, it gets noticed. And if you can, and also, by the way, it keeps you active, and it keeps you active creatively. And that's the hard thing, don't you think, about being an actor, is that you want to work, but somebody's got to give you work. But now maybe there's more opportunity to create your own work. So I think seize it if you can.
Good.
I think I wish I had kind of been more aware of kind of the power of, I think we as actors are so much, anytime somebody's interested in giving us a job or something, I'm so just like, you want to give me a job? You want to give me a job? And I feel so guilty if it's something I don't want to do, or if I don't feel like it resonates with me. And
Just
I
say no, essentially.
Yeah, kind of that power of no, in the sense of, but here's the deal, what I've learned is for me to say yes, because I'm so afraid of like burning that bridge or making them upset or whatever. But it's like for me to say, I'm doing a disservice to them to say yes. Because if I say yes and I'm not really 100% there, they're not getting 100% of me and what they want. Does that make sense?
And also, that goes to intuition, trusting your instincts, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's just that thing of like, I'm actually helping them out by saying no, because they're not going to get 100% of me if I say yes.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice.
It's got really deep.
And I know.
So
and now,
An
ladies
episode
and
of Oprah.
gentlemen,
now, for the third part of the evening, we will stream episode 309 from Veep, and then some audience questions after. All right, thanks.
it's endless. Stacey had to leave.
It's like the kids are in charge of the room. So, we just thought that was a fun episode. So we wanted
Yeah,
to share
we liked watching it together. So I understand that we're going to take some questions from the audience. So fire away if you got them.
I'm just wondering what kind of interaction you have with the writers do you get opportunity to ad lib, or do you give feedback about what you think your character would say or do, or how does it work when you work with the writers?
We have a great relationship with the writers, and it's we're sort of all in it together. There's an enormous amount of rehearsal that goes into the process. So, and weeks before, for instance, we're going to start rehearsing in August. We won't start shooting until September, well into September. So this coming season, and that's an example of, there's a lot of prep time. And in that prep time, the writers are with us in rehearsal as we work through scenes. And it's a really surprisingly collaborative relationship. And I've collaborated with a lot of people, but this particular process is really the most collaborative, I would say, for me, between writers and actors, constantly tweaking, constantly trying new things on top of what they've written, and they're watching it, and then they have an idea, and they say, we'll try it this way and that way, and it's just an organic, moving organism.
Yeah,
really.
It's also really nice because the writers don't feel so attached, so they don't not so precious with their words. So they're really open to if you have an idea or anything like that, which is really nice.
And also, as actors, you have to be willing to realize that, for instance, if you've got a joke, a punchline, it may not see the light of day. It may be shot even, but there might not be a camera on you when it's being delivered. And it may be heard in the background, and in fact, the joke is much funnier when the camera's on Mike McClintock eating a donut while this scene is happening. So, and a lot of that stuff is actually found sometimes, I would say, in addition to the writers and the actors, it's found by the crew. So we have incredible camera operators on our show, and who have to become unbelievably familiar with the material and the process of the actors. So they can sense if Matt Walsh or Reed Scott or anybody is doing something a little bit off that they need to catch, and they catch it. And it's invariably pieces of things are used.
This question kind of piggybacks on what you guys were just talking about. When you first are thinking about projects you want to do, when either TV or film, how much do you decide what project you want to do based on the actual script versus the collaborators that are involved with the project itself?
I think that's a great question because there's been some great scripts that I've read, but then many times I'll, look at the work that they've done, or they'll send me something that they've done, and if I feel like it doesn't jive, then they're the ones that are, heading up the situation. So it might not be implemented the way I think the script deserves. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's something it's that whole global picture of kind of they're part of it. Or also, sometimes I'm like, about the script, but then I know the person that's doing it, and I'm like, maybe it's just kind of like Armando's process where it really is formed in the shooting.
Right. It's a case-by-case situation, and you base it on experience and history and sort of the intuition. There you go. Yeah, intuition too. Yeah.
Hey, back here. Hey.
Hi.
What were some of your favorite roles that you saw as a kid that maybe influences you now in your acting as an adult?
I love that question. Sorry, can I go?
Yeah, go.
I was obsessed with, I can't see you. Raise your hand? Oh, hi, sorry. I was obsessed with Tim Conway on the Carol Burnett Show. And I think he just had a way that he never had to spell it out. He would do the smallest thing with his old man or his, all the characters he did, and it would just have the audience rolling because he really trusted the chaos of the circumstances that were given to him, and he just trusted them and just felt like he didn't have to push it. And another person was Bob Newhart on the Bob Newhart Show. It was just that, like, he just trusted the environment and never, like, here's the joke. He was just like, he knew that it was going to be somehow read for me, yeah.
And I would say there's so many wonderful people that have done such extraordinary work, but what comes to my mind actually are all the supporting players on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, like Cloris Leachman, and really, and Betty White, and Valerie Harper, and Madeline Kahn. Remember how fabulous Madeline Kahn was? These, and needless to say, Lucy and Mary and all those people are without a doubt, I think they influenced everybody all the time. But those are just some women that come to my mind. Terry Garr is another one who's, people sort of forget, we haven't seen her for a while, but God, she was phenomenally funny. Yeah.
You know,
Can you walk us through the bathroom scene from script? Conversations and rehearsal, everything.
Yeah.
It was just wonderfully done.
Oh, that's so nice. Thanks
Thank
for saying
you.
that, man. Well, we in the rehearsal we were given. I just remember saying, "Oh, Gary's gonna start bleeding when he starts getting
Right.
excited," and I was like, "Oh, that's gold." Because the whole thing is them giving us kind of playground to play in, And so it came up with rehearsal, and they wrote it, and then once that first part was, when we had that dialogue, kind of obviously scripted, and then we just kind of the whole week there was kind of a setup there. There was no tissue in the bathroom to handle the blood, and then it just turned into a True Blood episode.
Right. But I think that I believe initially it was the nosebleed, right? And then when we were rehearsing it, we thought it would be, because we wanted to get into the bag, right?
Yes.
And so we, so in rehearsal, we came across the notion of they're out of toilet paper, and it's a nasty ass bathroom, and it was a nice and horrible juxtaposition to the moment. And so, undignified, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. And so, and then, of course, remember, we had to come up with the things that were in the bag and what was too broad. And by the way, there are things that we were playing with that were, in fact, bigger notions
Than a book of bicycles.
A bicycle book and Tampax, right?
Yeah.
That was that day that we shot. That was a particularly long day, and we had a lot to shoot that day, remember?
Shoot, in a typical day, we probably go through 15 pages
Yeah.
in a day. And that is a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot,
Yeah, the scripts was particularly long last year. They were like 60 pages.
Yeah,
So
but arm, and they just like to really book. And having a theater background, there's times you're just done. It's like, we're done with that. And it's like, oh, you kind of want to make sure that it's really on point because
Right.
we're going so fast.
But also, I think the one other thing I would point out about that scene was, as broad as it was, we had to make sure that it was grounded, and we had to make sure that it didn't get too big too fast. So so that it wasn't just hysteria and blood immediately. That it had a real, growth
Yeah.
to it that was plausible. So, but that was actually a little bit of a challenge to make sure that we weren't in insane cartoon land,
being in the industry as long as you guys have, noticing especially when it comes to a narrative and the episodic plot line that goes through it, directors change from episode to episode. For you guys personally, how does the creative and technical aspect change, if any, when it comes to working with different directors? And do you all have any ones that are, your particularly favorite, or those who you might not like as much, though you don't have to per se name those names, but in terms
We're
of
going to name names.
what aspects, when it
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
to that, you prefer or do not?
Well, I would say that that's a great question, because I feel sort of we have a very small group of directors that sort of come through and direct multiple episodes during the season, and the season being 10 episodes long. And but I think it's a tricky job, isn't it? I think of this actually often from their point of view, because they're coming into this. They're not there all the time, and we're there all the time, and they're coming in to sort of help maneuver this vehicle over this particular terrain, but we've all been in this vehicle a long time. Fortunately, in this circumstance, it really is very helpful to have the same group of people repeating. The process is so dense and so seemingly chaotic, because we're trying to get so much done in a day, that they're quite used to the process. And I mean, I think, you know, Becky Martin directed 3 or 4 this past season, and she's a great director. They're all great, actually, but they all definitely have worked with Armando in the UK and are familiar with his style, all of them, which is a huge bonus because it's unusual. It's an unusual process, and he very wisely decided to bring these people on board who were really know the process like the back of their hands.
I think they had all worked together. They've all kind of worked together for a long time, so they were kind of used to each other's style. It was more of kind of us adapting in the beginning to their process, really, because they were very used to that style of. But
Right.
I think when you were talking about chaos, what I appreciate is it's so chaotic, but with that kind of an environment, you really want to know someone's captaining the ship.
Yeah.
Because many times a director will, you know, talk to the actor and be like, you know what, just go. Just like do whatever you want. And as much as actors, and you can, we all understand, like as much as actors, we say we want to be free, we want to do what we want. We still want to know the parameters. It's almost like if you tell a kid, like if you show them a field and it's like, go, the kid's like, But if you show them a playground, then they can go crazy because they have parameters like, what's your vision? What do you want? What's your style? And then we have the freedom to go. And I feel like each time we've always known what these people want, and we know someone's captaining the ship, which makes us feel safe, and then we can kind of free to play. Does that make sense?
First of all, you guys are amazing. It was
You're amazing.
Thank you.
such a great. Thank you. I'm having second thoughts about asking this question because it may be too personal. So just say
No,
fuck
let's
off
do
if
it.
that's the case.
All right.
But Julia, you were talking about how your husband is also in the entertainment industry, and Tony, I don't know what your situation is, but I was wondering if you could talk to balance, I guess, between a relationship where two people are in the industry, and or going away and doing a job, coming back, balance.
Well, it's hard. It's got its own set of challenges, and you know, actually, I think both of us are lucky because we're married to people who do understand the volatility of the business, and but to me, to be honest with you, to be honest, it sounds like it's a big secret. My family has always been my top priority. So, and so we both know that's what this is number one, protecting our group. And so that has been a great source of comfort to me, navigating these kind of tricky, sometimes fairly nasty waters of show business. That is to say, there's something strong and stable at home that overrides everything else, and that's very calming. Has been calming for me, and when it gets tough, and I think Brad would say the same, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. My wife is a makeup artist, and she really, it's such a gift to know that if I'm,
I think you're, there it goes.
It's such a gift to know that when we're away, that she's at home, my lovely wife's back there, but she's at home really being that stable force. I mean, it really is, I'm just so grateful for that, because it is chaotic. However, we do make it, you have to watch like every 2 weeks. I mean, because if we shoot for, I guess, 3 months, 4 months, but it's like we won't go more than 2 weeks without somebody flying back, or not every week, because it's just, my daughter's 8, and it gets, it's tough. It's tough.
Thank you for answering that.
Oh, thank you.
Hello. I have 2 questions. I'm right here. My first question is if you could please share a fun or funny experience on set. And my second question would be, what do you like to do when you're not working?
Okay. What do I like to do when I'm not working? I like to hike in the Santa Monica Mountains. Love it. And what else do I like to do? I like to hang out with my kids, and I like to knit. I do knit. And what's a funny moment on set? Of course, there have been a million of them, and now that you've asked me that question, I can't think of one, right?
Yeah, I don't, no, sorry.
Here, take this.
Do you have that? What if this went out right where I was? Funny moments on set. I feel, because my favorite thing in life, I love that I'm talking here, I'm sorry, you're right here. My favorite thing in life is a blooper reel. I'm obsessed with blooper reels. I love them. I would much rather watch the blooper reel than I would the show, because that's what I remember. I remember this one cracking me up constantly. I'm closest in proximity to her, so everything she does, the littlest thing, the littlest grunt, the little eye roll, I'm out. It's off. Out. So I love that. So when I think, I don't know, it's hard to think of one funny moment. It's just this like, it's almost becomes a game for her to get me to crack up, or like who can crack each other up. And that's really what I remember the most of, definitely.
Ditto. Yes.
My name is Christina.
Hi, Christina.
Hi.
Do you have a warm-up exercise you do before going into a performance?
Oh, the question is, do we have a warm-up exercise that we do before going into performance, from Christina? And I actually, if I can, I like to just be alone quietly. That's my warm-up performance, is to settle down by myself in my crappy-ass trailer and just settle for a second and not talk to anybody, and just, I need to be by myself.
I think that we also work the same way that a lot of actors sometimes in past that I've worked with, they like to kind of talk right up until they say action. That just kind of, that's something, and the fact is, I can appreciate that process, because they kind of want to get in the flow, and then they want to kind of roll out of a conversation into the scene. I don't work the best like that. I like to kind of, we both kind of just like to kind of be silent and then kind of go. So I would say that's, yeah.
Is this on? Yeah. But also, you know what, though? We do sometimes, actually, right before a moment of shooting, Tony and I would frequently sort of improvise our way into the beginning of the scene. That's kind of fun, you know?
Yeah, that is fun.
It gets you in the mindset. But
Like, for instance, if somebody pissed off Selena, it's something like, I cannot believe they said that to you in the
I know, I
background.
can't
It's
believe
just
that.
ridiculous.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
you're my idol, or
Right.
something. And then just to kind of get into the rhythm. But some people can just be like, talk about their lunch. Gosh, wasn't that good? And then they're like,
I cannot believe the steak wasn't well done.
Yeah.
And right.
And then they go into the scene. And I don't work, that's hard for me. I gotta have some kind of downtime or focal kind of focus improv. Thank you, Christina. I think we have one back here, actually.
Hi.
Oh, sorry.
Right here.
Hey.
So as a guy who grew up in the Washington area and then also worked on Capitol Hill, I have to say thank you for saying everything that we've always wanted to say but never could say. And it's also great as an actor to see, it's obvious that it's an ensemble piece. Like, everyone knows their place with each scene so well, and I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, that's
because
so nice.
it just flows really, really well. But has there been any response from Washington people?
Great question.
You betcha.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear.
It's been a very positive response, believe it or not. In the beginning, a lot of people were very generous with us before the series even began, and we did a lot of research on Capitol Hill, talking to senators and chiefs of staff and lobbyists and schedulers, and the list goes on from there. Which was fantastic. But as the show has grown and we've made more and more episodes, we're hearing from more and more people. And I had the great privilege of going to the White House and having lunch last year with Vice President Joe Biden. And when I got to the White House, and I was just, on electric, because I was so excited to be there, and this woman comes and meets me, and she goes, "Hi, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to meet you. I'm Dan," she said. And I thought, oh, that's wild. And so she's aligning herself with Dan Egan, who's, maybe arguably the most vicious besides Selena on the show. And then this other woman comes to the door, and she goes, "Hi, I'm the Sue in the office. And I was like, oh my God. So they're watching it, and they're getting a kick out of it, it seems. So it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild, yeah.
Because I think there's something to be said about, if you're in it, it's kind of nice when, and granted, we're a satire, and hope to God this stuff does not happen in D.C. Like, we understand that we take it to the extreme, but it does bring, again, I think, that humanity back into these places. You know, like, these people maybe are perceived one way that we do this, but when they see a show where they see the chaos, it's like, yes, that does happen, which I would think would be kind of affirming, you know, like, that it's just kind of freeing, like, yes, we're not what you think we are sometimes. We do have freakouts and stuff.
Hi, thank you so much for coming here. You guys are wonderful together.
Thank you.
Julie, I
hi.
have to tell you, hi, Maria.
Hi, I didn't know. I'm sorry.
We have a
I
problem.
have to thank you, Julia, for the years, decades of the laughter that you've given us.
Oh,
and
thank you for saying
stress
that.
relief. I'm going to speak for everyone. It was like medicine, and it still is. Anytime we're down, we watch Seinfeld, and it just lifts us up. So thank you. I've always wanted to say that to you.
Thank you so
and
much.
Also, okay, so two things. Any special memories that you can share with us from Seinfeld? And also, you mentioned that actors should create their own pieces. But how about if you're a perfectionist and it takes you a long time to actually get started? Any useful tips or anything you can tell us about that?
Well, thank you for saying that, and it's been a joy for me to make you laugh. So thanks for laughing, because it's a gift back. And I would say, in terms of making material for yourself, and if you feel as if you're a perfectionist, maybe be kind to yourself, and maybe let go a little bit, and give in to a little bit of imperfection if you find that your sense of, if your feelings of perfection are holding you back from really creating. I would say maybe, I don't know, lighten up on yourself a little bit. I guess maybe, is that a tack? I don't know. So give that a try. And seriously, you know, because I know from what I speak, because I'm a very type A, and I'm very hard on myself, and I think I need to lighten up sometimes. So, yeah. So there you go.
Hi. Me.
Hi.
Hi. Well, thank you so much, because that was hysterical. And thank you, Julie, because you're a woman in comedy, and I think there aren't enough of us in comedy, so thank you so much for that, because you're a huge pioneer.
Thanks.
For me personally.
Thank you.
And I know for a lot of other girls out there. My question is a two-part question. One, which was your absolute worst audition, or just like an audition that sticks out? And then two, you were speaking a lot before the second episode that we watched about your journey and about just things that take you to certain places and you don't know. But was there ever, you know, an actor's life can be hard. Was there ever a moment where you were like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this? And what sparked you to kind of come back? Was it a job? Was it something that you heard?
Okay, so
I love it.
What? It's a lot. Well, first of all, I would say, oh God, what was the first part?
Again? No, it's
Really?
good. It's good. No.
What was it?
What was it? Worst audition. Oh,
Oh,
God.
that I can answer. I've had some terrible auditions. Oh yeah, but this one comes to mind. I auditioned for, what was it? Oh, there was a movie called About Last Night, directed by Ed Zwick. Yeah, and I went in and I read for it, and I got there, and Demi Moore had just been in right before me. Right, that's all you need to know. And by the way, this is long before Seinfeld days or anything, you know, and she was incredibly confident and incredibly beautiful, and I wasn't feeling confident or beautiful that day. And I walked in, and I was auditioning for the Elizabeth Perkins part, and I blew it. I sucked. I was so horrendous. But I knew in my heart that I should have done. I knew that I could do this. It was in my wheelhouse, and it was a part I could play. So I beat myself up. I was so upset about it. I really screwed up. And so I left, and I thought, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to write a letter. And so because it was at this hotel or something. So I wrote this letter to the director, Ed Zwick. Dear Mr. Zwick, I really wish that I could have another opportunity, and I'm so sorry, and I was just a little off my game, and won't you please let me come back and audition again, and very gratefully yours, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? I got to go back in and do it again. Yes. And so I went back in, and guess what? I sucked. It was it was worse than the first time. And I'm shaking telling you this. It was so bad. I don't know quite why I've decided to share that, except that it's true, and it was shitty, but that was one of the worst ones ever of my life. Oh, what was the other one?
And your second part, what was your second part? Oh. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think with that, one thing when I talk about the business, I always talk about the value of a support system, because there's so much rejection in this business. And if you come out of it and you don't have somebody talking to who you are and your value outside of the business, because you and me have value outside of this business, tremendous value. And if somebody's not speaking into that value, then it can just eat you up. And so I think another big lesson, another thing is, when I booked this job that I was really excited about, this Arrested Development, I learned I guess I go back to that thing that clicked in me, because I'd given a lot of power, whatever that thing was. And my whole time building up to that, again, I was just like, that sitcom's coming. I want that sitcom. And when I got it, it wasn't that it was a fantastic show, but it didn't match that expectation. And it was that whole thing, if you're not practicing contentment where you are, you're not going to be content when you get what you want. And it was, but it was, it's true. And it really taught me, like, this business, man, it comes and goes. And it is about waking yourself up to where you are, because that's all we got. That's it. It's not that thing out there. It's really this. It's like where we are right now, like waking ourselves up here. It was that kind of heavy.
Can I get an amen?
It's true.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming, and
Yes,
thanks for
thank
staying
you.
so late. It was a pleasure for us. Thank you.